And then through the course of all that trauma and with all the rituals and all the stuff that they do, eventually, she said her legs began to shapeshift into fins, and then she would be able to shapeshift into a mermaid. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another Tattooed Reactions video. Hope you're all doing awesome today. In this video, we're going to be looking at a viral video that's made its rounds recently in social media of an apparent mermaid and or siren sighting. And so I want to check out this video so that we'll all be on the same page here. And then after we watch it, I'm going to get into, was it a mermaid? Was it a siren? Was it neither? Are mermaids and sirens the same thing? Are they different? There's a whole bunch of confusion and debate out there, but let's just check out this video and then we'll chat. Okay, so there we have it. It's a viral video. It's made its rounds on social media. And the response that I've seen has been pretty much down the middle. So I've checked a whole bunch of comments from the original video that was posted. I checked comments from another creator that reacted to it that went viral. And then my own video, I reposted this and did my own reaction to it. That's gone viral on my own channel, and all the comments seem to be pretty much down the middle. There are those who look at this and are like, oh, this is nonsense. It's just some person in a suit pretending to be a mermaid, or it's AI, it's not real, it's a hoax, and if you think otherwise, you're pretty much a moron. But then there's a whole bunch of other people who look at this and are like, no, it's legit. These creatures are real. This video is clear enough to be able to look at it and be like, yeah, it is a real mermaid and or siren. So what are my thoughts on this? And to me, looking at this video, whether that's real or not, that's a separate issue. I'm good with both ways there. If it's actually a real mermaid or siren and it's been caught on camera, cool. If it's a hoax, cool. The bigger question, I think, is, are mermaids or sirens, are they actually real creatures that exist? I think this is the bigger thing that we need to quickly address. And when you do some digging into mermaids and sirens, there's a lot of confusion there, because there are a lot of people who think that mermaids and sirens are actually different. You'll see that sirens were predominantly from Greek mythology, and they're actually land creatures that are half woman, half bird. And then you look at other people who are like, no, they're actually the same thing, and that through the course of time, this half woman, half bird creature morphed into what we now know as mermaid, half woman, half fish thing. So they're actually the same creature, the same thing. It's a bit confusing. What are my thoughts on this? Well, I definitely, and for those of you who follow my channel and follow me on social media, I definitely have a conspiracy theory bent to me. And from a biblical perspective, I hold that, and I have a ton of videos on this, so I'm not going to go into super detail, but I actually think in Genesis chapter 6 in the Bible, there's a story of where divine beings, angels, came down and they, number one, mated with human women, creating what we know as the Nephilim, the giants of old. But then they also, at that same time, began to mess with the animal kingdom. And so then this is where we get into the satyrs, the minotaurs, the centaurs, those half human, half animal creatures. And so if that was going on and the angels, divine beings were messing with the animal kingdom, why would they just stop with land creatures? Why wouldn't they go into the sea, into the waters? And so for me, I don't think, if that is my biblical worldview, that's my biblical supernatural worldview, I don't think it's a stretch that they then messed with animal creatures and they also created what we know as mermaids or sirens. These half woman, half fish creatures that live in the water. Now, when you just look throughout history, there are tons, hundreds upon hundreds of cases where sailors who spend the majority of their time out in the waters have come into contact with these creatures. And the whole narrative around mermaids or sirens in the water is that, they get seduced by these creatures through their singing, through their voice. They get drawn in, fall overboard, then they get pulled down and ultimately killed. And these accounts have been reported and documented for literally hundreds of years. And including recent times, a couple months ago, I was listening to a podcast and I heard a story from a dude, young guy, I think he was in his 20s, spends like 300 days a year out on the water as a fisherman. And he actually had documented footage. They're on the water and they're in this specific area. And whenever they were in this area, they would hear this singing on the water. And they heard it a few times, and eventually they realized every time we're in this area, we hear this. And so dude got his phone out and began to record, and you could hear on the recording these voices, and it's pitch black because then he was pointing his phone out in the water. It's pitch black. You can't see nothing. They're in the middle of the water. But then you begin to hear this strange singing. And then as they're going along, he begins to see on the side of the boat these like massive 12-foot mermaids following them along in the water. And he got it on tape. Now, of course, all the cynics will be like, oh, it's just doctored. It's fake. It's CGI. It's AI. But when you see the footage of it, it does not look made up at all. And so that's just a modern day example of these creatures existing. Now, I also heard another story from a pastor who is heavily involved in deliverance ministry. And he was praying for this one woman in a number of different sessions. And during the course of their interaction and hearing her story and through figuring out like what kind of demonic entities and stuff is plaguing this woman, and the story came out where from birth, she was experienced SRA repeatedly as a child, was forced to go into a whole bunch of, rituals and ceremonies and all that kind of stuff. And in the process of that, part of the torture and the stuff that she had to go through is they would constantly be dunking her in water, and to the point where she would like pass out, and then they would bring her up and then revive her. Then they would dunk her again, bring her up. And this was happening for years when she was younger. And then through the course of all that trauma and with all the rituals and all the stuff that they do, eventually, she said her legs began to shapeshift into fins, and then she would be able to shapeshift into a mermaid. And then she would go out, and then she could make herself go from human to mermaid, siren, creature, to do what she needed to do. And again, that sounds fantastical, that sounds crazy. But this guy, he's got a massive deliverance ministry, shares this story. And so you take all of this evidence and you put it together and you look at the biblical narrative, Genesis chapter 6, you know, I think that these creatures, I think that they're real. I think that they're demonic. I mean, obviously out there when you look at Hollywood and you look at movies, and there's a lot of stuff that maybe gets blown out of proportion. But I think on a very basic level, do these kind of creatures exist? Can they exist? And I would say yes, based on my worldview, my biblical worldview, if angels came and made half human, half divine being hybrids, and then they started messing with the land animals, why couldn't they mess with the animals of the sea? And so whether this mermaid siren in this video is real or not, I mean, that's left for speculation. But I think bigger than that, do these creatures actually exist? I think so. And I think they've been seen, and men have encountered them for literally hundreds of years. And so I think there's so much more out there than we realize. And I think that more and more we're starting to see encounters, experiences, stories happening. And I think as time goes on, it's just going to increase more and more. It's going to stretch your paradigm, and especially as Christians who have such a small, little, tight-knit paradigm, there's going to be a lot of stuff out there that's going to just blow your mind. And so I would ask God, I would say this prayer: God, expand my paradigm so that I can, when I encounter stuff, I'm able to process it from a biblical worldview and a biblical perspective, so that I can engage culture in a meaningful way. That's it for my reaction to this particular subject. Hope it was interesting. If you have any questions, comments, feel free to leave them below. Let's start a dialogue, and we'll see you all in the next Tattooed Reactions video. Much love, and God bless.